Watching CVR English, and this is World 360. 286 days in space, 4,577 orbits around the planet and flying over a distance spanning 195.2 million kilometers. NASA astronaut Sunita Williams has safely returned home. The astronaut, who went on an 8-day mission to space with fellow astronaut Butch Wilmore, was forced to stay in zero gravity for 9 months after the Starliner spacecraft she piloted to space developed multiple technical faults. What seemed to be a quick test certification flight, a process Suni has been familiar with thanks to her test pilot days in the US Navy, turned into a long stay filled with new adventures, record-shattering spacewalk and a political slugfest. The astronauts, part of the Crew 9 mission, ended their space flight as they splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean, have braved the challenging re-entry through Earth's atmosphere.
Onto the ship, we have a very special treat,
which is what this team is preparing for now. As for the recovery teams themselves, we started the day taking a series of helicopters out to the vessel. Oh yeah, Sandra, this view is absolutely unbeatable. So just to kind of finish off what I was saying is once that side hatch of the spacecraft is open, that crew will be assisted out of the capsule one by one.
Seeing the distance there between dolphin cam back again. we can see
so once securely on.
Welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks.
And there you have it. The side hatch is open for the first time since September.
Yeah.
And there we do see Crew 9, some happy waves, smiles all around back on Earth.
Oh, looks like we're getting our next crew member here. That is none other than Sunny Williams. Big smile, big waves. She, like her other crew members, now will be assisted onto the mobility aid.
There we have it, some waves, some thumbs up, and some smiles. We're getting some views of him now as he egresses or exits the spacecraft.
Once again, some elation and cheers there from Butch Wilmore. We can see folks on board clapping as our first crew member.
And that is NASA astronaut Nick Hague, commander of Crew 9, now out of Crew Dragon Freedom. Some smiles, thumbs up, and a wave. Can't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Onto the...
The people of Jalausan, the native village of NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, expressed immense joy and celebrated her safe return to Earth by performing Aarti. The village came alive with the excitement as they welcomed Sunita Williams, who, along with fellow NASA astronaut Barry Wilmore and 2 others, undocked from International Space Station and was scheduled to splash down the Earth at around 3:27 a.m. IST. Her safe return was a moment of pride for her village and the entire nation.
Yeah.
Israel began striking targets across Gaza, blaming Hamas for its refusal to release more Israeli hostages before negotiations on the second phase of the ceasefire. Israeli airstrikes on Gaza have killed several top Hamas leaders, including Mohammed Abu Watfa, head of Hamas Internal Security, and Abu Ubaida al-Jamasi, a key figure on the group's emergency committee. Palestinian health officials report at least 400 dead, including children, as strikes hit multiple areas. Israel says attacks were a response to Hamas' non-release of hostages and was to continue military action. With the ceasefire talks collapsed, Gaza braces for further escalation.
In a devastating escalation, Israel has resumed its bombardment of Gaza, killing over 400 people in surprise airstrikes. The attacks, which began overnight, shattered nearly 2 months of ceasefire and reignited fears of a full-scale war. Gaza's health authorities reported that many victims, including women, children and the elderly, remain trapped under rubble. The strikes targeted densely populated areas and campers for displaced persons, leaving scenes of chaos and devastation. Israel justified the assault, vowing to intensify military action until Hamas releases all remaining hostages. Israeli officials claimed the attack aimed to dismantle Hamas military and governmental infrastructure. However, Hamas accused Israel of violating the ceasefire agreement and endangering the lives of hostages. The international community reacted swiftly. Iran condemned the strikes, blaming the US for supporting Israel's actions. Egypt called the attacks a flagrant violation of the ceasefire, while Turkey denounced the violence as a grave violation of international law. The UN and EU urged an immediate end to hostilities, warning that continued military action would only deepen the humanitarian crisis. The ceasefire, which began in January, had initially led to a release of 33 Israeli hostages and 5 Thai nationals in exchange of 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. However, negotiations for further releases collapsed, leading to the resumption of violence. With 59 hostages still held in Gaza, families expressed fear for their loved ones' safety. As tensions rise, Israel is prepared for potential retaliation, cancelling schools near Gaza and halting train services to southern cities. The region remains on edge, with no clear path to peace in sight.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted, stating, "Israel will fight and Israel will win. We will bring our people home and we will destroy Hamas. We will not relent until we achieve all these vital goals, and we will not rest until we give our country a future of peace, prosperity and hope." In a follow-up tweet, Netanyahu also said Hamas refused offer after offer to release our hostages. In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. While that did not happen, while Israel accepted the offer of President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff, Hamas flatly refused to do so. This is why he said that he authorized the renewal of military action against Hamas, and he thanked President Trump for his unwavering support for Israel. Our alliance with the United States has been stronger, said Netanyahu.
Hamas is responsible for this war. It invaded our towns, murdered our people, raped our women, and kidnapped our loved ones. Hamas refused offer after offer to release our hostages. In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. Well, that didn't happen. While Israel accepted the offer of President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, Hamas flatly refused to do so. And this is why I authorized yesterday the renewal of military action against Hamas. Israel does not target Palestinian civilians. We target Hamas terrorists. And when these terrorists embed themselves in civilian areas, when they use civilians as human shields, they're the ones who are responsible for all unintended casualties. Palestinian civilians should avoid any contact with Hamas terrorists. And I call on the people of Gaza, get out of harm's way, move to safer areas. Because every civilian casualty is a tragedy. And every civilian casualty is the fault of Hamas. I thank President Trump for his unwavering support for Israel. Our alliance with the United States has never been stronger. To those who criticize Israel, I ask, what would you do if terrorists murdered and kidnapped your children? You would do what we're doing. In the face of pure evil, free societies have no choice but to fight. So I want to assure all our friends around the world, Israel will fight and Israel will win. We will bring our people home and we will destroy Hamas. We will not relent until we achieve all these vital goals. And we will not rest until we give our country a future of peace, prosperity.
A group of released Israeli hostages spoke publicly for the first time at Tel Aviv's Hostages Square on Tuesday to urge an immediate return to negotiations after Israel unleashed a devastating wave of airstrikes across Gaza, shattering a ceasefire with Hamas.
Today the ceasefire has collapsed. For the 59 hostages still held in Gaza and their families, this moment brings renewed fear, not only of the ongoing attacks, but of a breakdown in negotiations that could bring them home. Every effort must be made to prevent further loss of innocent life and to ensure that diplomacy continues. This war must end and all hostages must be returned to their families.
אחי הקטן איתן נשאר מאחור בגיהנום, ואני מרגיש שליש ממני נשאר בעזה. כל הסרטונים שיצאו בזמן האחרון שגם אתם ראיתם, שלי ושל איתן, של נתן אנגרסט, של גיא גלבוע דלל באביתר דוד, כל הסרטונים שעבורנו היו סימני חיים, אני מקווה שלא יהפכו לסרטוני פרידה אחרונים, סרטוני פרידה אחרונים.
Nearly 3 weeks after a disastrous meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky at the White House intended to find a peaceful end to the years-long war in Ukraine, President Donald Trump dialed his Russian counterpart in a fresh attempt to find an end-to-end conflict. Donald Trump, who called Vladimir Putin at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, spoke to the Russian leader for over 2 hours. The call went well, said the White House. Both leaders negotiated on ways to secure a ceasefire in the Eastern European conflict zone. Tens of thousands of lives have been lost so far in the war that has been going on for more than 3 years. Even before the phone call, President Trump has already made it clear that he was ready to discuss what parts of captured Ukraine Russia will be allowed to keep. Moscow and Washington are already talking about dividing up certain assets. The US President has said over the weekend, European nations are worried that President Trump, who has not hidden his admiration for Russia's Putin, may agree to cede too much Ukrainian territory to Russia. They are also very concerned about the Ukraine is not being consulted on decisions that may be agreed upon the phone call. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he supported the proposal to stop strikes on energy targets, something Ukraine has already proposed in its own talks with the US and Saudi Arabia about the Russian war.
Якщо президент Трамп може дотиснути щодо деталей і не бити по енергетиці і по морю, якщо такий перший крок, а поки що інших кроків немає, то нехай розкаже тоді деталі, як ми будемо це робити. І я впевнений, що всі наші сторони, принаймні американська і українська сторона, буде підтримувати будь-які кроки, які ведуть до зменшення ударів і по військовим, і по цивільній інфраструктурі. Тобто ми ж підтримуємо всі всі кроки щодо закінчення війни. Ми її будемо підтримувати, але для того, щоб щось підтримувати, треба розуміти, що конкретно. Буде час у президента Трампа, він зайнята людина, буде час, він набере будь-який час, у нього є там телефон, немає питання, ми готові, проговоримо з ним наступні кроки задоволення. Ми відносимось зі скепсисом з точки зору довіри к русским. Довіри до Путіна немає. Тому я і кажу, треба зрозуміти, як технічно це буде відбуватись, щоб це не залежало тільки від їх бажань. Ось і все. Тобто це не та гра, в якій диктує правила виключно Путін. І я думаю, що допомога буде продовжуватись. Ми маємо допомогу як Сполучених Штатів Америки, так маємо допомогу наших європейських колег. Ми на постійному зв'язку. Я впевнений в тому, що ніякої зради від партнерів не буде і допомога буде продовжувати. Якщо президент Трамп може дотиснути щодо деталей і не бити по енергетиці і по морю, якщо такий перший крок, а поки що інших кроків немає, то нехай розкаже тоді деталі, як ми будемо це робити. І я впевнений, що всі наші сторони, принаймні американська і українська сторона, буде підтримувати будь-які кроки, які ведуть до зменшення ударів і по військовій, і по цивільній інфраструктурі. Тобто ми ж підтримуємо всі кроки щодо закінчення.
Lawmakers from Hungary's small opposition party Momentum lit up small flakes as the country's parliament passed a law on March 18 to ban the Pride March by LGBT communities. They also scattered in the assembly hall, manipulating photos depicting Orban and Russian President Vladimir Putin kissing as the voting progressed. The vote triggered the blockade of a bridge in central Budapest in protest against the changes fast-tracked by Prime Minister Viktor Orban's ruling party.
Figyelmeztetem is képviselőtársaimat, mivel úgysem vesznek részt, akik fönn vannak. Bravo! Emlékeztetem, kérem képviselőtársaimat, őrizzék meg nyugalmukat, akik arra születtek, hogy a rendetlenséget szítsanak, azok most is ezt teszik. Emlékeztetem önöket, hogy tegnapi döntésünknek megfelelően a törvényjavaslatot kivételes eljárásban tárgyalja az országgyűlés. A Törvényalkotási Bizottság összegző módosító javaslatát T/11.201/4-es számon, összegző jelentését pedig T/11.201/5-ös számon terjesztette elő. Most az összegző módosító javaslatról döntünk. Kérdezem a tisztelt Országgyűlést, elfogadja-e a Törvényalkotási Bizottság T/11.201/4-es számú összegző módosító javaslatát? Kérem, szavazzanak! Kimondom a határozatot. Az Országgyűlés az összegző módosító javaslatot 137 igen, 28 nem és egy tartózkodó szavazattal elfogadta. Most a zárószavazás következik, melynek során a törvényjavaslatnak az összegző módosító javaslattal módosított szövegéről döntünk. Kérdezem a tisztelt Országgyűlést, elfogadja-e a T/11.201-es számú módosító javaslat összegző módosító javaslattal módosított szövegét? Kérem, szavazzanak! Kimondom a határozatot. Az Országgyűlés a módosult törvény. Figyelmeztetem is képviselőtársaimat, mivel úgysem vesznek részt, akik fönn vannak. Bravo! Emlékeztetem, kérem képviselőtársaimat, őrizzék meg nyugalmukat, akik arra születtek, hogy a rendetlenséget szítsanak, azok most is ezt teszik. Emlékeztetem önöket, hogy tegnapi döntésünknek megfelelően a törvényjavaslatot kivételes eljárásban tárgyalja az Országgyűlés. A Törvényalkotási Bizottság összegző módosító javaslatát T/per 11.201/4-es számon, összegző jelentését pedig T/per 11.201/5-ös számon terjesztette elő. Most az összegző módosító javaslatról döntünk. Kérdezem a tisztelt Országgyűlést, elfogadja-e a Törvényalkotási Bizottság T/per 11.201/4-es számú összegző módosító javaslatát? Kérem, szavazzanak! Kimondom a határozatot. Az Országgyűlés az összegző mód.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz praises a historic spending package for the defense and infrastructure passed by Parliament in Berlin. These decisions are important and they are correct and they are appropriate, said Scholz during a joint press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron. Olaf Scholz further added that ceasefire on attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure agreed by US President Trump and Russian President Putin as important first step, but said a total ceasefire must be next. The next step must be complete ceasefire for Ukraine as quickly as possible, said the German Chancellor.
We of course followed the telephone conversation between US President Trump and Russian leader Putin. We have also been in contact with President Zelensky in the USA and were therefore able to speak about it immediately before this press conference. We are in complete agreement that the goal of all efforts must be a just and lasting peace for Ukraine.
Das Ziel aller Bemühungen muss ein gerechter und dauerhafter Frieden für die Ukraine sein.
The ceasefire now announced regarding attacks on energy infrastructure can be an important first step along the way to peace. The same applies to the start of technical negotiations for a ceasefire at sea. The next step must be a complete ceasefire for Ukraine and as quickly as possible. Of course it is clear, and we both agree on this too, that there must be no decision without Ukraine and over the heads of the Ukrainians. The war in Ukraine has a considerable impact on Europe's security as a whole. And that is why we want to improve our defense capabilities quickly and consistently. All EU member states must do more for defense. This will remain one of the central tasks at national and European level for the coming years and decades. By strengthening the European pillar of NATO, we are strengthening the transatlantic alliance as a whole. Let me turn to the current situation in the Middle East. We are very concerned about the civilian casualties in Gaza now that fighting has resumed there. Our particular concern in Germany is, of course, for the remaining hostages. This is also the case in France, and the largest group among them are German-Israeli double standards. My clear call to Hamas remains: release the hostages at last. What is important is that the political future of the Gaza Strip as a whole must be discussed. The Arab League plan provides a good basis for this. We of course followed the telephone conversation between US President Trump and Russian leader Putin. We have also been in contact with President Zelensky in the USA and were therefore able to speak about it immediately before this press conference. We are in complete agreement that the goal of all efforts must be a just and lasting peace for Ukraine.
Das Ziel aller Bemühungen muss ein gerechter und dauerhafter Frieden für die Ukraine sein.
The ceasefire now announced regarding attacks on energy infrastructure can be an important first step along the way to peace. The same applies to the start of technical negotiations for a ceasefire at sea. The next step must be a complete ceasefire for Ukraine and as quickly as possible. Of course it is clear, and we both agree on this too, that there must be no decision without Ukraine and over the heads of the Ukrainians. The war in Ukraine has a considerable impact on Europe's security as a whole. And That is why we want to improve our defense capabilities quickly and consistently. All EU member states must do more for defense. This will remain one of the central tasks at national and European level for the coming years and decades. By strengthening the European pillar of NATO, we are strengthening the transatlantic alliance as a whole. Let me turn to the current situation in the Middle East. We are very concerned about the civilian casualties in Gaza now that fighting has resumed there.
Germany's outgoing parliament has passed an increase in government borrowing, which includes a change in the country's debt rules. The conservative CDU, CSU and the central-left SPD, who are currently in talks to form the coalition, have proposed a 500 billion euros fund for the infrastructure.
Abgegebene Stimmkarten 720, mit Ja haben gestimmt 513, mit Nein haben gestimmt 207, keine Enthaltungen. Nach Artikel 79 Absatz 2 Grundgesetz ist zur Annahme des Gesetzes die Mehrheit von 2/3 der Mitglieder des Deutschen Bundestages erforderlich. Das sind 489 Ja-Stimmen. Der Gesetzentwurf ist mit der erforderlichen Mehrheit angenommen. Damit sind wir am Schluss unserer heutigen Tagesordnung und damit auch am Ende der letzten Sitzung des 20. Bundestages. Abgegebene Stimmkarten 720, mit Ja haben gestimmt.
Turkish authorities detained President Tayyip Erdogan's main political rival on Wednesday in charges including the corruption and aiding a terrorist group in what the main opposition party called a coup attempt against the next president. Several vehicles, one of which was believed to carry Istanbul's mayor İmamoğlu, who was seen leaving the police premier at the scene. Dozens of police were also stationed outside the İmamoğlu's house as he was detained in a video provided by the local news agencies. Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu of Republican People's Party faces two separate investigations that also include charges of leading a crime organization, bribery and tender rigging. His party was poised within the days to name him the challenger to Erdogan, who has run Turkey for more than 2 decades. The two-term mayor is widely seen as a competitive in any future poll.
Başkanlığı nerede? Araçla.
Mevlüt abi.
Geliyor galiba.
Geliyor galiba. Alın bizi, alın bizi.
Oğlum yola. Gel. Abi. Başkanlığı nerede? Araçla.
Mevlüt abi.
That's the end of the World 360. Stay tuned to CVR News English.